The Pro Football Hall of Fame announced, well, they put it out on X and other various places as well, that they are proud to announce that Brent Musburger has been chosen to receive the 2025 Pete Rozelle Radio and Television Award. Outstanding news, long overdue, absolutely deserved. And the Godfather himself, Brent Musburger, joins us now here on the Progressive Guest Line. Congratulations, Brent. That's amazing news for you.
Yeah, Mitch and Polly, thanks a lot. Certainly came in an unexpected manner, and I owe a debt of gratitude to an awful lot of people who worked with me and a whole slew of athletes, believe me.
I bet.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Well,
really is.
I want to ask you about this because Pro Football Hall of Fame also tweeted out that your close friend, longtime broadcasting partner Dick Vermeil called. When you picked up the phone and Dick was on the other line, why did you think he was calling?
It was kind of interesting. I had just gotten up here in Montana, finished a cup of coffee, and was getting dressed, and the phone rang, and I looked at it, and the ID was NFL Hall of Fame.
Oh.
And I thought, I wonder why in the world I got in this call. So I said, hello, and Coach Vermeil said, Brent, Coach Vermeil, congratulations. And my response was, congratulations for what? And then he said, you're the winner of the Pete Rozelle Award. And of course, it means so much to me because of Rozelle. When I was just a runner starting out on Chicago's American, Pete Rozelle was a PR guy for the Los Angeles Rams. And back in those days, when there wasn't the use of tape and cable TV, the PR men advanced games, and they came into town on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and they entertained the local writers. And they always gave them a few tidbits of news that they could use in the build-up to the game. George Hallis himself disliked it intensely because he always would say to me, Brent, they're spies. Don't tell them anything when you're having lunch with them. It was fun. It was great fun. So, all the old guys, but having Coach Vermeil, who was a great friend through the years, it was something to get a phone call from him sitting in the president's office at Canton.
About a couple years ago when you were on the Dan Patrick show and he said, I'm going to get this done. He couldn't believe you weren't in, and he said, I'm going to put you in or try to do it. And how much do you think that played a role? And you want to thank Dan Patrick?
Paulie, I have a world of thanks to two guys, Dan Patrick and Jim Nantz. They both started it, and they were up on the Dan Patrick show together before the Super Bowl in Las Vegas.
Yes. And
honestly, without Dan and without Jim, I'm not so sure that this would have even started, to tell you the truth, because they got it rolling, and Jim Nantz says so many nice things about me, and he's going to receive my first phone call of thanks, but I don't want to bother him. He's a little busy at Augusta, Georgia.
Very good. You got it, Godfather. You mentioned that the help along the way. How special is this? And if you were able, all the people that worked with you, but the greatest pregame show of all time, but what it meant to Jimmy the Greek, Irv Cross, Will McDonough, and Phyllis.
Yeah, what a group, Paulie. Each and every one of them contributed so much. Originally, the show was built around myself and Irv Cross. That was the plan. And then the general manager of CBS Sports called me and said, Brent, do you know a Miss America by the name of Jane Kennedy first, and then do you know Phyllis George? And I said, listen, I've got to be honest. I said, I don't follow the Miss America show. Said, well, we're bringing in Phyllis George. I said, well, fine. I was just a kid. I wasn't going to tell management no to anything, whatever they wanted to do. But it was a great success. Phyllis probably hasn't received as much credit as she deserves because it was unknown for a woman to be a major part of a sports show, leave alone the lead-in to the NFL on Sunday on CBS back in the day. And then the second year, we added Jimmy the Greek, and that led to more conversations with Pete Rozelle, who finally asked us not to use -3, +7, -10, and it left us wondering what the hell we're going to do when we're picking football games on the NFL today. But we came up with the Greeks checkboard, and we took it from there. And Pete Rozelle was a great friend of the show. He would come by every now and again, and he was so supportive through the years. And It was a great show.
Well, think about this for a second here, and it's Follow the Money on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Our guest, Brent Musburger, found out today going in to the Hall of Fame, he's going to get the 2025 Pete Rozelle Radio and Television Award. It's a pregame show that if you're of our age, in our 40s, even a little bit younger than that, we're still talking about it, how great it was. And anybody who's listening in the audience that's around our age, they're like, hell yeah, absolutely. And it's 40 years ago now, and we all remember how great that pregame show was for the NFL.
Yeah, it was the first live pregame show, which is remarkable. Jack Whitaker and Pat Summerall taped the one on Friday night, and that preceded the NFL Today. Bob Wessler's idea was to go live at halftime, go live at postgame, and so he was really the person who got the ball rolling. But live is the only person who complained, Mitch. Occasionally, I would get a letter, rather nasty, from a minister complaining that we were hurting attendance at church on Sunday morning. Only people who ever complained about the NFL Today.
It's funny you bring that up.
Oh, that's great.
True story. I could not wait to get home when I was younger from like Sunday school or church. I'm like, Mom, we got to go and watch the show. We got to get ready for the NFL. I vividly remember that.
Yeah, it was a great lead into the show, and it was only 30 minutes, so we didn't have a lot of time to waste. So we kept it rolling pretty good through the years. I mean, I think about first long pregame show I had was at the Super Bowl. And I think we went 2 hours, and now I think they go for 2 days leading up to a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Most memorable football game you called?
I didn't call it, but I'm going to give you the most memorable football game because I was the spotter. People don't realize that Lindsay Nelson used to do the Chicago Bear games, and in the preseason, he came to me at the American and said, Brent, would you be willing to spot for me? And I said, absolutely. There was no greater gentleman, and I learned so much from him about how to work in a booth, how to announce play-by-play, how to look for the numbers, how to watch your monitor. We were doing a game between the Bears and Houston, and I prided myself on being the fastest spotter in the world. And Houston scored in the second quarter, and I gave Lindsay the wrong receiver. I was so trying to be quick, I pointed to the wrong number on his board. And so I felt horrible when I realized what I had done, and I tried to correct it, but he went to commercial, and he said, Brent, don't worry about it, okay? And when he came out, he just smoothly said the other player's name. He was the one who caught that pass in the end zone. But I will never forget how kind he was in the booth. And what I learned about that is, you rely on other people, and so mistakes are going to be made, and you accept them, and you just go on from there. Now, Paulie, the game that receives the most publicity, and I'm going to give you an anecdote, is the Doug Flutie game on a Friday. It wasn't a pro game, but a college game, okay? So years later, I was with Jimmy Johnson. I said, Jimmy, I just don't understand. Why did you change defenses on that winning touchdown pass? There was a penalty that preceded it. And I said, why did you change coverages? I said, I didn't want to say anything during the broadcast. I'm not a football expert, but you didn't press the receivers. And he said, okay, Brian. He said, I've never said this, but he said, you know what the press box was like at the old Orange Bowl? I said, yeah, sure, of course. He said, my defensive coordinator thought the game was over, and he was in the elevator. And he said, we couldn't get the help from up above on what to call. And then Jimmy paused, and then he said, and Brent, he's my ex-defensive coordinator. So, okay, there you have it, boys. The Flutie game. And that's a game that lives forever because it gets shown over and over again.
Well, Godfather, about a minute left here. Do you remember the first time you ever made a reference to the point spread or the total in a college or an NFL game?
Well, it honestly would have been on the NFL Today.
Okay.
And the first time, and I got in trouble for it, we did an NFC championship game, and afterwards, the Greek slipped me a piece of paper with the spread on the upcoming Super Bowl. And I gave the number. I don't remember who the two teams were. I gave the number, okay? And you better believe I got a telephone call the next day from man. Don't you ever do that again. And, of course, I did it the next year. You know what I mean?
That is outstanding. So well deserved. Phenomenal news today,
Thanks,
sir.
And Mitch, Mitch, by the way, congratulations, my man. The Florida Gators had them all the way.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Love that cash in tickets. Okay, guys. Thanks for the call.
There you go.
Paulie, thanks, my man.
Thank you. And he loved the Gators anyway. Got to break Brett next time he's in town. There you go. The great Brent Musburger going into the 2025 Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.